Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. Hamas immediately tell the world it was an Israeli airstrike and that 500 people were killed and that the hospital had been destroyed. And then as the next couple of days go by, the hospital is relatively undamaged. The car park was obliterated. Many fewer people than 500 were killed.
How many people died?
We don't know, because actually we're reliant on the Palestinian Health Authority, which is Hamas in Gaza, for the figures. So we don't know the number, but a lot fewer people died, it would appear, than the
Like
500.
100?
We don't know.
50?
Either way, it's appalling, but it may not have been anywhere near as appalling as was first said by Hamas. But here's the point. Most independent studies of what happened have concluded that it was almost certainly a militant stroke terror group inside Gaza, and they fired a rocket which landed in the hospital car park. In other words, it wasn't an Israeli airstrike.
So I have an issue with that, because for 3 days before the attack, the priest and the patriarch of the hospital, because it's called the Baptist hospital, said that they have received multiple warning from Israel that they're going to hit the hospital. And then at the time of the hit of the hospital, one of the top aides of Netanyahu, he tweeted about like we hit the hospital, and then he deleted it, and then basically like Israel gaslighted the world.
But
It was not us. It was not us.
But that's why I said most independent.
No, that's not true. New York Times actually like just published something to prove that it was shot from Israel. And the thing is,
No,
okay,
they didn't. Though.
Okay, numbers.
They didn't.
Numbers.
Bassem, that's not true.
Okay.
The New York Times has not reported that it was Israel.
No, they said
They haven't.
okay.
That's not true.
Over 10 years, Hamas launched 35,000 rockets into Israel.
And many failed.
They killed 69 people. And 25% military, only part of them were civilians. So over 10 years of 35,000 rockets, they killed 69 people. But in one strike, you want to tell me that these glorified firecrackers caused that kind of damage?
Wow.
Yes, it looks like they did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, it wasn't the damage.
But I get what he's saying. He like, yo, they have launched a smorgasbord of rockets, and which only have killed 69 people in a span of 10 years. And then you're saying they shoot this one, and it just completely took out the like people at the hospital and took the hospital and stuff. He's like, no, it's not real.
That was reported by Hamas, who wanted people to believe it was an Israeli airstrike. So my point would be, I'm happy to concede that Israel government has lied about stuff over the years. But I'm absolutely certain as well that Hamas lie all the time.
Why are we holding a militant...
I believe, from all I've read, I believe they lied about the hospital.
Why are we holding the militant terrorist group to the same standards as the best
because
and only democracy in the Middle East?
They happen to be the ruling party in Gaza. So they're not just a terror group, they are a political group as well, a political party.
Okay.
Well, they are. So the question again comes this, and so far you've ducked it, so I want to ask you one more time. We can both agree that the scenes in Gaza right now are horrific, because I do feel that. But I don't know how else Israel can eradicate Hamas than the way that they're currently trying to do it. Do you have an alternative for them?
Well, again, we are locked in the same thing, what can we do now? But we don't look at what was happening over there. The best recruiter for Hamas is Israel. I mean, you have talked a lot about the horrible condition in Gaza.
Yes.
I mean, let's imagine like a little boy called Rami. He lives in Gaza. You know, he have a horrible life, but like, you know, it's not that bad. I know he has a cousin in the West Bank. He's living a good life. He wake up in the morning and he found out that he was kidnapped by 3 settlers. He was burned alive by kerosene, and he was forced to drink the kerosene. His name was Muhammad Abu Khudaira. That settlers did that to him in 2016. Said, all right, you know what? I'm just going to leave. I'm going to find a way to go to Europe. His aunt is a published author, and she won a prize in the Frankfurt Book Fair. His name is Adnaya Shtalib. And now she was cancelled because of what's happening, just because of her a Palestinian. His other aunt in America, his name Bahia Amawi, she is a speech therapist, and this is close to my heart because of my son. And she was fired because she did not want to sign for government that said that you cannot join BDS, which I don't understand. Why do people choosing to protest peacefully by not buying goods from a certain country? Why would the United States make that its own issue? So And this guy, this Rami is being approached by like, oh, join Hamas, join us, let's go kill Israel. No, I don't want to kill. I'm going to live in Gaza. It's a life. But 97% of water is not good for human consumption.
Oh.
Half of the population are anemic. Even the is not being treated, and it goes into the shores of Israel. It's like, oh, those Palestinians.
Which is horrendous.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then he wakes up in the morning. He doesn't think about killing Jews the first thing in the morning. He thinks about being there at 5 o'clock at the first 50 people in the line for bread, because if he doesn't, he will miss the food for his family. And he goes back and he finds a message saying that we are going to bomb your house. He comes back, he loses his whole family. Now tell me, what is a proportionate response for that?
I don't know.
You cannot create terrorism and then you.
I don't know.
You have. They have created this.
I don't know is the answer. But Bassem, let me ask you this: Hamas will have known when they perpetrated what they did on October the 7th, what the scale of response was likely to be. How does that help the Palestinian people?
I don't know.
That they are supposed to serve.
I don't know. The wheels are already set in motion.
But it doesn't, does it?
I do not. I feel sometimes that Hamas is with us in the room, that we are bringing Hamas. Who has the power in this equation? Who has the fourth largest and strongest military power? The whole idea about Israel, it's like, oh my God, the Arabs are going to destroy us. Look at the map.
Hang on. Hamas's stated goal is the eradication of Israel and the Jewish people.
Yes.
Right.
They make no pretense about it.
That's
they
right.
made no attempt, unlike the Nazis who tried to cover up their crimes.
Absolutely.
They made no attempt to try and deny what they brazenly boasted about it.
Yes.
They are proud of what they did. Right? And they will have known, again, the scale of what they did on October the 7th would have prompted this kind of response, which would have led to thousands of innocent Palestinians getting killed. And my question for you...
I wish the 7th of October never happened.
Right, but
every time something happens.
You say Hamas is everywhere. Well, yeah, actually all roads, all roads on this particular part of the crisis, and I accept it's been going on for 75 years, this conflict, but all roads in this crisis lead to Hamas and what they did.
Right.
Not necessarily. Because all roads goes to the condition that created Hamas. If the Jewish people were expelled from Europe and went to Argentina or South Africa and Uganda and went in and took the land, you would have Hamas in all of these places.
You and I can agree that the conditions Palestinian people have had to endure in Gaza for a very long time are completely unacceptable. I think it's completely unacceptable that Israel has wielded such control over the people of Gaza, working out who can come in and who can go out, turning on and off water and power on a whim, turning off the internet on and off at a whim, all that kind of stuff I can completely agree with. But given that I think we agree Hamas are a terror group.
Okay, let's say...
Let me finish my question. Given that we agree that Hamas is a terror organization who have a publicly stated position of annihilating not just Israel, but Jewish people.
Period.
As we saw on October the 7th, they mean it. If you are Israel, what do you do to get rid of those people who have shown the world that's exactly what they will actually do if they get the chance?
You know what I would do? I would give the Palestinians what they deserve. Terrorism is a virus.
Yes?
It's a virus.
I agree.
If a patient with a flu came to you and you're a doctor, how can you treat that patient? How do you treat? As a doctor, how do you do?
Well, you're the doctor.
You give them nutrition, fluids, and rest.
So
the immunity of the body gets rid of the virus on its own. If I received that patient with a flu and I took a sledgehammer, it's like, why are you not getting better? Do you think that patient will get better? No. You are weakening him. You are making him worse. Israel did not just weaken the body of Palestinians, making them unable to get rid of hate and radicalism. They have openly bolstered about helping and giving money to the same terrorist organization. So,
that's crazy.
I agree. I think Netanyahu is complicit in keeping Hamas in power because it suited him politically.
Yes.
And I think you can't get away from that.
Yes.
There's no question of that. But there's also no question that the Israeli government, led currently by him, has to stop Hamas from perpetrating another terror.
You know what's so funny, Joy? I was listening to a prophet today, and he was talking about people they're saying, yeah, support Hamas, support Israel, support Hamas. It's crazy what's going on. But he said, what you don't know is in a couple months, couple years, they're gonna be back fighting. It's gonna be all back. We are, you know, it seemed like everything stopped and then it go right back. He said the key is what Hamas, what Palestine and Israel don't have is Jesus. He said because there's no peace. There's no peace in the Middle East because they don't know who God is over there. They don't know who Christ is. So they just battle. So we sitting here the whole time, people fighting for him. We listen to the government, the U.S. talking about, we stand with Israel. And that's another thing. Anytime the government tell you to go with somebody, go with the opposite. But the whole time, they're going to be fighting right back later, and the media ain't even going to be covering it because they're going to be right back fighting over there.
Terror attack. And again, it comes down to this question. What do they do to get rid of Hamas if it's not what they're doing?
I don't know. But like as an Israeli citizen listening to this, how come that my prime minister bragging about giving money to the terrorist group that he is using right now to eradicate a whole group of people, and yet using them as an excuse? Isn't that weird? This is like like Tony Blair being like found like giving money to Al-Qaeda or ISIS and then going to fight them. How does this work? How does this work?
I agree.
How does this work?
Yeah, but I agree with you.
So yeah, it's a terrorist attack, and Israel is funding them. I mean, this is in the words of Benjamin. This is the thing about Benjamin Netanyahu. He brags about that stuff.
That's
so
confusing.
this is a circular question.
Yeah, but
yes,
I agree with you.
Hamas is to blame. Who created Hamas? Who's helping them? And who is allowing for an environment for that kind of hate and destruction of Jewish people to aspire? And I think there's something very important to the Western audience here. They think that Israel is a small, tiny country between the hostile Arab countries. Mm-hmm. The biggest military power in the Arab world is Egypt. They have a peace treaty. Their neighbors, Jordan, they have a peace treaty. Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia, Emirates, either like have like full relationship or like on the way of normalization. Yeah. The only people that, even Syria is not like even like didn't launch like a single bullet. The only two crutches that Israel has is like Hezbollah and Hamas. Yeah. A few thousands of militant. Syria, is that really formed an existential like threat, especially if I know that over 13 years, only 69 Israelis were killed?
I would say.
Would that really wipe out Israel? Is Israel that weak?
I think if you have two groups of people who are ideologically wedded to your destruction as a state and as a populace, and you're constantly firing rockets, as Hamas have done for over a decade now, then that cannot be acceptable. You have to stop that, right? These are terrorists who've now shown on October the 7th their true colors. They don't just talk about wanting to kill all Jewish people. They are going to do it if they get the chance. So I don't believe Hamas can possibly stay in any position of authority in Gaza. I think that would be ruinous for not just the people of Gaza, but also for Israelis. So if you're going to get rid of them, which many people think on both sides is inevitable and should happen as a consequence of what they did, the big question is, how do you do that? And I don't know any other way other than the way Israel is currently doing. Hence my personal moral quandary about this.
So if a terrorist takes over the Empire State, instead of taking him out, we bomb the whole Empire State?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Proportion.
That is not even a question. Well, that was not even a question, because that would be ridiculous.
You talk about the normalization of the region. I mean, the theory that I most buy into, supported by recent, I think, Wall Street Journal reporting, that hundreds of Hamas terrorists had gone to Iran for training before this attack. Okay. It had obviously been very carefully organized, and so that is, I think, highly likely. But if you're Iran, and you're looking at all this normalization, and you're looking at Saudi Arabia being next, this is your worst nightmare. So a perfect time to commit an atrocity like this through your proxy of Hamas.
Again, I'm not a political expert to know what is the background, but let me tell you.
It's a likely theory.
Is Hamas justified? Is all of the horrible conditions that Palestinians are living in, is that a justification for Hamas doing what they did in October 7th? Good.
Do you think so?
Of course not.
Right. So we're agreed.
No, of course. So let me ask you the question a different way. There is no justification what Israel is doing now. No Hamas, no terrorist attack justifies this. Well, because you have been there. No, but you have been there. You have stood against the Iraq.
I guess what I don't understand is why he feels that way when Hamas are the ones that launched the first attack, and then Israel retaliated. I mean, I know what he's saying prior to the attack. There were other things going on which led them to want to attack. But then he was saying that the Benyahu is supporting Hamas, funding them to do what they're doing to the Israel, and that's the part that I'm confused in.
I am
and
too.
I've got to do more reading and research on it, because that's how you know it's really way deeper than what we only have privy information that we are privy to. And I know this goes back on from the time of doing Jesus is when this whole thing started. But what is the real underlying issue here?
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess what Prophet Lope
I
said, absence of Jesus. But why can't they cohabitate together, in separate areas, or be able to agree on one space?
Father Abraham.
Yeah.
Backwards.
Yes.
And that is too much.
Yeah, but here's the
You are
difference.
killing a whole population.
No, here's the difference. I didn't stand against them for that reason. I stood against the Iraq War because I did not believe we had seen evidence that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So we were fighting a war against a country and a despotic leader which had nothing to do with 9/11, as they were trying to claim. It was actually a lie perpetrated on the world, and the consequences were disastrous. 1 million people died. I mean, over 150 British troops died. My brother served in Iraq and could have been one of them. The whole thing was a fiasco, a deadly fiasco. It led to the rise of ISIS and all the hell that came with that. So, yes, absolutely, I fought that campaign against that war, and I wish I'd been successful. But the singular difference here is no one is disputing, least of all the Hamas themselves, that they perpetrated this attack. And I believe Israel has a fundamental right and a duty to defend its people from them doing it again. So if we can agree on that as a principle of a country that's had that kind of attack and how you deal with it, the question then becomes, how do you eradicate the people who did it? And I just think, given the intense nature of the way the population exists in Gaza, very, very large numbers of people in confined places, and that is in itself unacceptable, and I will agree with you about all of that, and that has to be fixed longer term. But actually, if Hamas are everywhere there amongst these people, I just don't see any alternative to what they're doing. And I'm very happy to consider one. But I don't think you have one either.
So if the Iraqis were actually, there was evidence that they were behind 9/11, would that still be okay to kill a million Iraqis?
We have a parallel, which is Afghanistan. And in fact, I would say, but that raises a different question. So was the Afghanistan war just? I believe it was, in a way that Iraq wasn't. I believe that Afghanistan was harboring terrorists, Al-Qaeda. We know that they were training there. We know the Taliban were there. And we went in, we launched this war. It goes on and on and on. Huge bloodshed on both sides. And in the end, after a ridiculous overnight pullout by America and President Biden, the Taliban are back in charge and waging the same kind of medieval rule they waged before all this. So you've got two things. Was it justified to strike back at Afghanistan for harboring Al-Qaeda? I would say yes. Did the means in the end justify the war? You could argue no, actually, because actually you ended up with the Taliban back in charge. So they're two different things. And it may well be here, by the way, as I've said, that if Israel pursues this ground invasion, it backfires horribly. It leads to a much wider conflict involving many other people, possibly including Iran directly. And it could be a horrendous escalation and a massive war raging through the whole region. And that is my fear about it. But I come back to the central point of justification. And I'm really struggling to see what else Israel is supposed to do to get rid of Hamas. And if you've got an alternative,
what is
let's hear it.
I do.
Yeah.
Piers, this is never about Hamas. Believe me, it is never about Hamas. If somebody tells you who they are, listen. Israel has been telling the world all the time, they need to clear the Gaza Strip into Egypt.
You think that's always been the plan?
Always there. I mean, they have said it. They have said it many times. Why does Egypt take them? And do you think when Egypt takes them, do you think they go back? No, never. And then when they're done with Gaza, they will go back to the West Bank. They will kind of like build the settlements around them, and then until they push them into Jordan, because that is the plan. They have token, not just Benjamin Netanyahu, everybody. So like,
So that's showing how much of a power they are. If they could, basically what he's saying, if they can just wipe out Gaza, they can claim that area so they can get closer towards, I guess, moving back and forth to Egypt. Because apparently you can't move them back and forth to Egypt so swiftly because you got to pass through Gaza. So if they can clean it out, they got to just open access and goods and whatever else they want to do back from Israel to Egypt. So that's deep. That's deep.
Yeah.
there's no state, two-state. It is one state, and it's for the Jewish
I don't
people.
think he believes in a two-state solution.
Nobody believes in a two-state solution. It is one state.
But nor do Hamas, obviously. And they're the ruling authority in Gaza.
They,
They don't.
you see what you're comparing? It's a militant group. It's a small militant group.
But they are the
Israel,
ruling power.
Israel as a nation,
They are
as-
the elected political leadership.
they were
of-
elected in 2006, and
But
50%
they are-
of the people in Gaza right now are under the age of 16. They were
I
not even
understand.
born.
I understand.
Yeah, like so,
Understand.
and the
so
thing,
all right, so Bassem, let's agree about that.
but that's the circle city. It's what
I understand. It's a circular firing squad.
Hamas,
I know,
Hamas,
I know.
Hamas, Hamas.
I know, but okay, let's move forward.
Oh, yeah.
Let's assume somehow we get to a place, possibly at the instigation of countries like Saudi Arabia and others getting directly involved, where you get to a place where Hamas are removed, and I don't quite see how that happens without enormous further bloodshed, but let's assume they get removed. Let's assume that Netanyahu is removed from office, which I think is highly likely just from the fury of his own people about what they see as the defensive and security failings, plus his attack on the Supreme Court already causing huge polarization. Let's assume we get new leadership in both places. Could there still be peace? Could there still
No.
be a two-state
No.
solution?
No.
It can never happen.
No, because Israel have already shown it's not about Netanyahu. It is the policy of Israel not to give the Palestinians their seat. It has always been there.
But what if you find leadership that understands?
You will not.
But why are you
You
so...
will not.
But why do you not
because,
think so?
Because Israel has been,
But they would say the same about the other side. And I remember...
who has the power?
Let me give you a parallel. Let me give
Obama
you-
in his book.
Let me give you a
after he-
parallel.
okay.
Let me give you a parallel. Northern Ireland, okay? Northern Ireland appeared to be completely intractable, with the IRA and the loyalist paramilitaries trying to kill each other. In the IRA's case, trying to kill British people as well, because they did not want this to go the way that people wanted it to go. And ultimately, we got to peace because we found leaders who actually had the courage, the moral courage, to get in the room with the people that were trying to kill them and to do a deal. I don't think you can do that with Hamas. They're on a different scale to go to the IRA. But we did have a seemingly intractable place
What's the
riddled
IRA?
with violence
IRA.
on both sides. And eventually, we got peace. Do you not see there's any chance of doing that here?
No, not with Israel. Obama, after he left office, he wrote in his book, the problem with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is that one side is extremely powerful and one side is extremely weak. There is absolutely nothing to oblige that strong side to give anything. All over the years, Israel showed you many times that they are not interested in peace. Leave Gaza. Forget Hamas for a second. The West Bank. What have they been doing in the West Bank? The illegal settlements did not stop a single day.
No,
They
no.
are
And it's completely wrong.
yeah, but the thing
But
is,
it's wrong. I agree with you.
But you see what they're doing in the West Bank right now? They are creating little Gazas. They're creating little Gazas.
Yeah.
And until they are like squeeze them. There
And it's completely wrong,
There
Bassem.
is a hilarious documentary called The Wanted 18. It is like an Israeli-Palestinian co-production. And it tells about the incredible story about the residents of Beit Sahur. It's a Palestinian town next to the Nazareth. And they said they don't want to depend on the milk coming from the kibbutz. So they bought 18 cows. 18 cows. And they didn't know how to milk the cows or have a cow farm. So they were like engineers and doctors. So they sent people to kind of like to learn how to do the farm. So they bought the cows and they started to produce milk and they started to sell the milk to the villages. The Israeli authorities were not very comfortable. So one day the military government came in and was like, those cows, and I quote, constitutes an existential threat to the national security of the state of Israel. You need to get rid.
Wow.
And the movie goes about like the hilarious attempts of hiding those cows between the butchers and the houses. And in one scene, a cow is actually running, and the Israeli soldiers are like running behind it, and they corner it, and they're about to kill it. And you know what did the cow say?
What?
He didn't fall for this. Cows don't speak. Yeah! But you know, it actually said something. You know what did it say? It said Hamas. But anyways. This is the ideology of the Israeli ruling party. They are not interested. They're not even allowing you to get your own cows. I mean, I want to discuss something that is very important, because we have been talking about Israel being a democratic state, a secular state for all of its citizens, including its Arab residents.
So that makes so much sense now. Why America is like, yeah, we stand with Israel, because Israel shares democratic views. They would be the democratic Middle East. They'd be the democratic Middle East. And so you can see how that gels well with the democratic administration that wants.
When he says democratic, I don't necessarily think he means like the Democratic Party over here. I think he means more like a democracy.
Correct.
Yeah, where they're
And that what but that's what the confusion is also over here, because it's like I still think America shares those views of Israel's views. I think it's still shared. And then they got it's a treaty under what's the name of that treaty? Where they share is it NATO?
okay.
But yeah. Okay.
That's right. Wrong. Wrong. 2018, there was a resolution that was offered in the Knesset that say that Israel should be a state for all of its citizens.
Right.
That seems basic, right?
That's
That
the
resolution was
democracy
not
part.
even allowed
For the people.
to be discussed. It's like, wait, why? And the rebuttal was, Israel being the state of all of its citizens would threaten the character of the Jewish state. There is, I have a friend of mine, his name is Andrew. He's Palestinian Christian.
So I get it. That's last time.
Okay.
So if that's the case, now it's starting to make sense to me, because just think about what we're going through over here in America and how things have, switched. So it's supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave. The U.S. is. We have freedom of speech, Second Amendment rights, blah, blah, blah. But now it's completely opposite. It's, it's switched, tremendously. We still have Second Amendment rights, but now they're really, the more freedom of speech you think you have, the more censored it's becoming. So we're, it's been appeared to be, or we've been a certain way, but now it's appearing to be one way, but really right now it's not.
Right.
So is that what he's saying is going on over there with Israel? So Israel may seem to and appear to be the democratic one,
But really
behind closed doors, he's saying
they got the blickies.
They the ones that's funding Hamas. This is where I need to get more clarity on it and understanding, because that just sounds totally absolutely
somebody's low key. You got
insane to me.
come together, and then somebody's invoicing their leader over there and make sure they get.
So that's like, wow.
Because that means that would be reason to attack, because we have an agenda. I need y'all to attack because then we have agenda how we can do this, that. I'm thinking, what I think what makes sense to me, you fund your ops. You fund them to come attack you, so America can jump in and hurt y'all. Now we can open up and get through that. Now we can wipe out that Gaza Strip, and we can get on to where we need to go.
Well, I mean, now I can understand why he's so he's not digging and not supporting, the Israeli government like, it appears that we should be.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, wait a minute, but no, they did this. But he's like, well, why did they do that?
True.
And that's the part that I don't have.
Yeah.
They do exist. And his family comes from a town called Tarshiha. As many Palestinian towns, these would had another Israeli town called Kafar Radin. It is a left-leaning town. They voted against Netanyahu by 70%.
Left-leaning.
And they announced an auction to sell houses. And then they noticed that most of the applicants were Palestinians. They canceled the auction. Why? Because in each Jewish town, there is something called admission committee that can decide who can live in this town. Sounds like Jim Crow for me. And then they canceled. And you know what they say in their reason? They say, Kafar Radim welcomes all citizens of Israel despite their race, gender, or color. However, the majority of the town would like to preserve the character of the town as being Jewish, Zionist, and secular. How does this go together, secular and Jewish aside? And this brings me to this picture. This is a very famous picture. Remember this picture? I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
This, for the people who don't know, this from San Augustine, Florida, 18th of June, 1964. This was a white-only motel. And these are black activists who wanted to defy the law and jump into the hotel. This guy, he's the owner of that. His name is James Brooke.
What is he pouring? Is that he like pouring into a? What is
It's
this?
some liquid.
No, but what is that around it? Like
I don't know. I can't tell.
And he was pouring
I'm not
acid
sure.
to scare them out of the hotel. His neighbor said that James Brooke was a victim because he was just following the law.
Wow.
And you know what James Brooke said? He said, it's not like I don't like black people. I just don't like them in my swimming pools. Now, if an official said that, wouldn't you say that this town has kind of a systemic racism?
Yes.
This quote was not said by James Brooke. It was said by Deton, the head of the Galilee municipality, when he said, I don't like Arabs. I don't just like them in my swimming pools. The town of Nazareth Elite, 2010, the Arab Christians in the town, they requested to set up the Christmas tree next to Nazareth. This is the birthplace of Jesus. And you know what they said? We cannot have it because non-Jewish symbols would offend Jewish residents.
But this comes back to what you were saying at the start, which is about the hate on both sides.
No, I'm not talking about the hate. I'm talking
No, I'm-
about this shining example that Israel won't tell the world that we are like the Western world. We are secular. I don't know if you know this, but they're not just like secular, like Christians against their own Arab. I'm talking about like Arabs with Palestinian, with Israeli identity. I'm talking about them being even racist against their own people. 1950, Yemenis immigrants that came from Yemen, and they were in the transition camp waiting to be transferred into Israel. Their kids were taken away from them and given to white Ashkenazi Jews because they were not white enough.
But Bassem, what would happen if a Jewish person went to Gaza?
Why would they go to Gaza?
And exactly.
Even I wouldn't go to Gaza.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah,
So-
it's a dystopia. But I'm just.
So it's
wanna-
not just, you're
but-
raising points about Israel, making out that somehow they're as bad or worse
No.
than what's going on there.
No,
But Hamas has ruled over
yes,
the Palestinians
but
in
you
the
know
most
what?
oppressive way imaginable, too.
Absolutely, but you know what? Hamas never claimed that they are the only democracy in the region. They never claimed that they are secular. They never said that they adopt Western tradition. And
I
they
wanna-
definitely,
Okay.
they did not use that lie in order to carpet bomb a whole country.
Okay.
Now here,
Let me-
I want
I
to say
wanna read
one
you a
example,
quote.
and I'm going to leave you.
All right.
Israel, you think that Israel will like, by the way, the whole thing about the Yemeni children, you can find it in New York Times, it's called like the lost children of Israel, the forgotten. But even when Ethiopian people were immigrated to Israel, Ethiopian Jews, women then report, 2013, that's not like 50 years ago, they reported that they were given against their consent and without their knowledge contraceptive shots so they wouldn't reproduce because they are the wrong color. Israel is a racist, apartheid country that is projecting this shiny example of secularism and democracy for the people so people can accept whatever they do because they look at Palestinians as lesser people. This is the whole point. This is the whole point. And I would like to quote Winston Churchill. He had a quote that say, I don't believe that we have made a great wrong to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia because they were replaced by a higher race, a stronger race, a more world-wisely race. This is why Queen Rania is criticizing the West. This is why we here said, like, where are your values? Because this is the crux of the problem. It's not Hamas. It's not Palestine.
I wanna quote-
it is people
I wanna
looking at
quote
us
you.
as lesser human beings.
I don't dispute the characterization that a lot of the Israel administration look upon Palestinians as lesser people. Otherwise, they wouldn't.
They even look at the
they wouldn't treat them
Ethiopian
in
Jews and Yemeni Jews like less.
I wouldn't dispute that. I want to quote you to end this.
No, why would you end this? Don't end this.
We've been talking for 2 hours.
Why not?
At some point,
We're
we have to
having
end
an
this.
amazing
We
time.
can do another interview. I just want to keep going a bit. I think this is
so
a neat
cool,
way to
man.
end it. He said, I actually
can
believe.
You can't tell you don't. I don't care what nobody say. You can't tell. I don't feel like Robin Williams right there.
Yeah, I mean, his so much about him as a comedian, his comic, and even his vibe to me, how he's dealing with
Matches
this.
so much.
Yeah, it just reminds me of Robin Williams so much.
Especially with the hair.
There is a middle ground between everybody, and they can meet. I direct my criticism for the extreme of each one of them. That was you, Bassem Youssef. I agree with that. But I don't share your view there can never be peace in this region. I think there can't be with the current leadership structures in both countries, or both places. But I definitely think you've got to be optimistic about peace. You just need to
Yeah.
find people
I
that can
hope so.
forge it.
I hope so. But the reason, listen, I refused to come on your show when your producer first called me for the first interview because I was scared. I was afraid. For me, that was a career suicide. Because this is even important because you are someone who's always talked about like against cancel culture, about like speaking your mind out. Speaking your mind out.
Yes.
I left Egypt and I came to America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, but I didn't know that there was a fine print said that you cannot speak about Israel. I have issue with that. Israel is a foreign country. They're allies, good.
But you
we give
can
them
speak
aid.
about Israel.
How many people lost their jobs? Even Bella Hadid. Bella Hadid, she Bella, by the way, Bella
She hasn't lost her job.
No, but she's talked about death threats. She's talking about like being silenced.
Sure.
By the way, Bella Hadid is she's Palestinian. And you know who else? Gigi Hadid, sisters.
I love the Hadith.
They are with us.
Yeah.
See, he said
so-
with
Another
us.
With us,
Very
I heard
Yeah,
him.
but the thing is, if you are that high and you cannot speak about it, and it's not about, it's
Well, you
like,
can. You just have to have. You can.
Censorship.
I mean, I've spoken out about these issues, and you get shot at, not literally, but metaphorically, all day long on social media. That shouldn't stop people from doing it.
I'm just like wondering, as an
You
American,
do?
as an American, yeah, but like, I'm doing now because like the first interview went well.
Right.
I'm doing that because I want people to see that you can really speak up and not just get canceled, but get rewarded. My career is going fine.
Yeah.
It's great because I want people to have the courage. There should be no limits.
I agree with
I'm
that.
kind of like so confused as an American citizen why every American presidential candidate have to go and kiss the hand and bend the knees to AIPAC. This is a lobby that works for a foreign country interest. Why don't we have like a lobby for Saudi Arabia? It is they're giving us more
But
money.
you know the great thing? You can say that here.
Yes,
You couldn't say it in Egypt. That's why you're living here.
yes. But again, a lot of people feel the burn, the heat
But
whenever they come
If I
down.
was an American, I'd be going, all right, Bassem, all right, we'll take the criticism because you can do that in this country.
And I'm happy.
When you criticize the government in your own country,
Yeah.
they drove you out.
Yes, and that's why I came to America to play the white man's game, to actually to pass this acquired white privilege to my children.
It's not
problem
just a
is,
country
I
of
am,
white people.
But here's the problem.
And the white man's game, the game in America is not a white man's game. It's a game that actually has a democracy and believes in freedom
but there
of
are
speech.
dog whistles everywhere.
You're not going to be put in jail for this interview.
Or I can lose my career and I can lose jobs, and you know that.
You
know
could
that.
in Egypt, you could.
No, here you can.
In Egypt, they arrested you.
Here you can.
And they threatened you, and you would have probably ended up in prison or dead.
Here, a lot of people lost their jobs because they spoke up.
It depends what they say.
Of course, but again,
If you're Kanye West and you spew anti-Semitic
No,
garbage,
I'm not. No, I'm
You're gonna
I will
lose-
never.
you're gonna lose what you
I
have.
will never adopt that kind of point
Right.
of view. But the thing is, there is dog whistles everywhere. As I told you at the beginning, you cannot just say it's like anti-Semite. Like I mean, now how come that the Palestinian flag is outlawed? By the way, it's outlawed in Israel. If you raise the Palestinian, you go to jail. And now they're saying like the Palestinian flag is a pro-Hamas. No, it's not a pro-Hamas. No, I was doing a comedy show in Arizona, and a guy was like wearing like a kofaya, like a scarf, and I took it, and I'm not like in hyperbole and like wearing symbols, but I just took it because like, why are we gonna outlaw colors and flags? That is absurd. That is not right.
I agree. I don't think you should. But you should certainly outlaw Hamas.
They're already outlawed. I mean,
Right.
I'm not
Because
supporting
they're a
them.
terror group,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But the people with the power, the people who supposedly have the...
And you should, by the way, I will say this, you should be able to criticize the Israeli government without being accused of
Yes,
being anti-Semitic.
but-
I have in this interview repeatedly, and I'm not anti-Semitic. I just have a problem with all of what the Israeli government's been doing.
And I have a problem with how any criticism to Israel by some circles here are considered anti-Semite. This is not fair.
But a lot of the people doing it are actually anti-Semitic.
Yes, but also a lot of Zionists are against Israel, that they hate the Jews. You know,
We've discussed that. I want to end on a happy.
But before that, I want to just like say 2 words about the media, which is, please.
Sure.
Mr. Zomlot, the Palestinian ambassador that you have, this guy lost 6 members of his family in an Israeli strike. And when he went on like some British news thing, he sat down and the lady told him, it's like, we are very sorry for your personal fun. I'm sure you don't condemn the killing of Israeli civilians. What? In the same moment. There's another girl like called Yara Eid. She was like on Sky News. And the girl was like crying, like, I lost 30 members of my family, 17 of them are children, I lost my best friend. And then, what did you think would happen forget about empathy.
Like,
they don't
what
have
about
no
manners?
Well, I think you
Where's
have
your
to,
human?
I said this repeatedly,
They don't have no
you have to
clue.
start from a place of humanity. You have to look at what happened on October the 7th and feel utterly outraged and disgusted for the loss of human life.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you also have to feel that for what's happening in Gaza to innocent people.
But-
Yeah.
But if you can't feel for both sets of people, both sets of innocent people being killed, if you can't feel a sense of despair and horror over their deaths, you don't have any humanity.
Believe me, Piers, it's not really about that. There's a deep sentiment in the Middle East, in Arabs, that the West do not look at us as equals.
But you know what?
So what I did, I went to the machines.
Yeah.
And I asked ChatGPT simple questions. Do Israelis deserve to be free? And you know what they tell me? Yes, Israelis deserve the right like any other people. And then I asked the same question, do Palestinians deserve to be free? And you know what they tell me? It is complex. It is a sensitive issue.
Well, it's not complex. It's not sensitive. The Palestinian people should be free.
Yeah, but
And they
even
should-
the machines
let me
have-
finish. And they should have exactly the same rights
Yeah.
to freedom and freedom of expression and a way to lead their lives and to water and to power and to
Yeah.
internet that Israelis have. We
Right.
have here in America. We have back in my home country. of the UK.
Absolutely.
And I want that for the Palestinian people. We've got to end it there.
Okay.
Mainly because I've worked up a hell of a
All
hunger
right.
in 2 hours of interview, and you have brought your wife's cooking.
I bet
So
that bread
so
is
tell me
out
again
of
how I do
sight.
this.
Okay, so basically,
Take a piece of this,
You-
put
you-
it in
you-
the olive oil,
yes,
which is from the West Bank,
yeah, from the West Bank,
and then a little bit of this,
yes,
like that.
yes,
They're
yes.
both olive oil.
This is like
No,
amazing
the other
oil
one's
coming
like a
from the olive tree.
seasoning type of mix. with some
This
other
comes from the
stuff,
West
I
Bank.
guess.
Since 1967, Israel have actually uprooted.
Piers got so many delays. He even delayed when he enjoying a tasty morsel. He like this.
I bet some olives would be great with that too.
Mm.
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
You're supposed to feel that like within the first half second.
800,000 olive tree just to.
Ah,
That is absolutely
I
delicious.
said olives.
I know.
Let me give
Please
us some
thank your
olives.
wife for me.
Thank you.
Wish her all the
Black
best and her family,
olives.
particularly those who are obviously in
Colorado
Gaza.
olives.
It's been great to see you
Thank you so much.
in America. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Let's keep talking.
Yes.
I honestly think the way through this is people keep talking.
Right.
Good
Thank
to see
you. Thank you so much.
Man, that was so good.
Yeah, that was.
It was really good, and that's how we need to be able to communicate. You know, that way to be able to sit and talk about things. I just really loved all of the information and the knowledge that I have learned from his perspective, from
Yeah.
his view, from what he knows, and that's how you can really make a true assessment, is to really talk to the natives, you know, get someone who's been there and knows what's truly going on, versus you get glimpses and pieces from, you know,
The
the
media.
media. And even just getting the documentary, you know, looking at the documentary that I did to, you know, to do the video on my channel to like get a clear understanding of the origin, but I still didn't get as much information that I got from him, which means I need to go and dig a little deeper, because I'm just like, it seems the way the media presents it, it seems cut and dry,
Yeah.
but it really isn't cut
Yeah.
and dry. It's a long, deep spiral hole that you have to go down and get to the very bottom and then work your way up to
So-
understand what's really going on.
Exactly.
Versus a top-down view. You need
Exactly.
a bottom-up view.
And I would, man, let me tell you, man, Jesus would turn the belief in Christ alone would tone out all that. But
how long
without
can that go on? It's like, is that ever going to come to an end? You know, like Piers said, be optimistic about peace at some point one day and at one day in time.
well, I'm going by what my pastor was talking about, and I agree with him. He was like, it'll be peace, it'll get peaceful, and then and in 2 years from now they'll disagree with something and start throwing back bombs on each other.
Well, if they have Christ, then they will have peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, that's the end leading to the water.
All right, guys, this was really, really good. Give us some comments. Hopefully you have watched, this is the last part. Hopefully you've watched the 2 previous parts. You've been, thinking about it. You may know a little bit more than we know, but, still you're chiming in, giving us feedback. If you want more content that is going to help you think, engage, and continue to come back for more, subscribe to the channel. And we absolutely love your support. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Smash that.